What is up, Creed Willems? Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited, but I have to start off the top. Creed is a really cool name. Is there a story behind your name?
So I think it originally, my mom's a teacher, and whenever we lived in West Texas, she had a coworker whose husband was named Creed. My parents really liked it, so
So
that's
that's a story. It's
it
the
is.
coworker.
It
I like
is.
it.
So yeah, I mean, I didn't know what it was until I was probably 14 or 15, and I was kind of listening to. Like, I'm real big on music, so I listen to all sorts of music, and I was listening to Creed, and so it just sparked the question. I was like, "Am I named after the band?" And then I ended up finding out who I was named after. So
That's good. I think for me, I learned like the origin of my name by like a school project that I had to do in like primary school, or, like kindergarten. And, everyone had these like family names or like a really cool story. My parents were like, yeah, we were just watching a movie. I was like, okay, cool. Like, do I really want to write my report on that? But I love that. And a question that I ask all the guests that come on the What's Up podcast is, what are you all about right now? And so, what is Creed all about right now?
yeah, so I recently got back into watching bull riding. Um, so I've been watching, a lot of videos of that, just stuff like that. Growing up, I was a huge JB Mooney fan, um, and it was something that me and my dad would sit down and watch. And I got home from the season, and a couple weeks after I got home, the PBR was having a team series in Fort Worth. So I went over there to that, and it kind of sparked that again. So I've been watching a lot of highlights, but also some of the craziest crashes too.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I think that's probably what I'm
So
big
I've
on right now.
never gotten that one before. So I need a little bit more. I don't know anything about bull riding other than it's definitely very
Mhm.
entertaining, also very scary.
It is. So, I think another big thing is, like whenever you're there, one thing I really respect about bull riders is, I mean, they're all about their country and they're all about the Lord. Like before every event starts, um, everybody comes together and prays in the arena, and then um, after that, you can look down behind the chutes and you see guys praying or reading their Bibles. So it's like these guys are,
Shoot, I'd be praying. I'd be
exactly.
praying
So,
really hard.
but yeah, I mean, one of my best friends, he was actually a bareback bronc rider in high school. So not bull riding, but that's something that, we've really been talking about lately. And in the future, I would really like to have my own ranch.
Okay.
Um, and that's kind of always been my dream is I've always wanted to, play professional baseball and then own my own ranch, have cattle and all that stuff. And so after that, it's like eventually, hopefully, after my career's over, maybe get into that and have a bull on the circuit. So
So I have to ask, have you ever done bull riding yourself?
I have not. I've been on a horse, but I've
Those are
never.
very
They
different.
are, but I would never get on a bull.
While you're in your baseball career.
Exactly. Maybe after my career is over. But it's something that I mean I want to at least try it once.
Yeah.
But that one's gonna be pushed off to the side for now.
Yeah, I think that's smart. I think
Uh,
that's very wise. So cool. Well, that was the first bull riding, what you're all about that we've gotten. But I do want to know a little bit more about your hometown, Alito, Texas. For people who have never been, like myself, what should we know about your hometown?
Um, my high school's a big football school. Um, it's all about football, and then in the recent years, baseball's really become big. So I mean, growing up, we were a pretty small town at the time, and it's just grown so much over the years. And um, my brother's senior year, I got to see him win a state championship, and that was my only goal. My senior year came up short in the semifinals, so didn't get to play for one, but I felt like it was a blessing from the Lord because the next week was the state championship, and the next week, since we weren't in the state championship, I was actually able to go up to Camden Yards and work out up there, in front of the front office, and I felt like that was something that maybe I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do if we would have went to the state championship. I wouldn't have been able to go up there, and who knows if I would be where I am today.
Mm.
Um, I mean, I would have ended up going off to college, and who knows what would have happened from there. My first year was a big adjustment, so it was like I could have went to college and struggled, and then I'm not in the lineup every day, and who knows what would have happened.
Wow. And can you just speak about that because you were committed to TCU, is that right?
I
And
was.
then you get drafted by the Orioles. When did you make that decision to go pro?
It was pretty quick, honestly. My goal was always to get drafted out of high school, and if it felt right, and I put myself in a position. I told myself, if I get drafted, um, I feel like that's the Lord telling me that that's where I'm supposed to be. And I mean, a lot of guys out of high school, like I got what I wanted money wise, and a lot of people would have been like, "Oh, well, you could have went to college and made more." Well, I also could have went to college, and it could have been a completely different script. So for me, I just felt like the Lord gave me the opportunity to get drafted because that was what I was supposed to do. And so it was pretty quick. I waited 3 or 4 days and told the coaches at TCU that I was really thinking about it. Whereas in reality, as soon as my name was called, I knew what I was doing. So I wanted to, I wanted to have one of those things where it's like I didn't want to immediately just go and tell them. I wanted to, be able to pray on it, be able to talk to my parents about it. But from the get go, I felt like that's what I was supposed to do.
I think that's really wise because even if you know that you know that you know, right, about a certain decision, there's some respect too to your college coaches of like, hey, I'm not just jumping the gun on this. Like, I committed to your school. Like, I know that this is a big decision that I'm making, and to like honor them with that time too
Yeah,
is
for
probably
sure.
important.
And I felt like it was one of those things like that's where I wanted to go growing up. If I was going to go to college, I wanted to go TCU. But I also, didn't really want to go to school. I I made good grades, but my mom taught at my high school, so it was kind of a given. And if I didn't make good grades growing up, I didn't get to go to baseball practice.
No
So
way.
yeah, so I
How many
was.
times did that happen?
I don't think it ever actually happened.
It was
I
just a threat.
was. It was. So I was.
Straight A's.
I was supposed to have straight A's, and the only class that I was able to have an 85 or above was language arts
Okay.
because I couldn't stay locked in that class. Had no interest.
So your
So
math and science.
yeah, and then history was up there. So I
Okay.
really enjoyed history. So
All right. Well, that is hilarious that your mom would
mhm.
tell you you can't go to baseball practice, but I bet it helped you in the classroom and be like, "Oh,
It
shoot."
did. It made me actually focus on it, and something I learned was it was something I didn't really want to do, but it was something that was important to take care of. So I feel like that transfers over. It's like there's plenty of things that you might not want to do. Um, but at the end of the day, like you still have to be able to go out and do it, whether you want to do it or not. And it could be one of those things that maybe it doesn't have a huge significance to you, but it could be something that means the world to somebody else.
Hmm. I I laughed when you said, like, "I didn't really wanna go to school," because it's a funny thing to say, right? Because it's such a normal thing. At the same time, I totally get it because I lived in different areas of the country, growing up, and in certain places where you went to college, how prestigious it was such a big deal.
Mm.
Like, it was like the thing. It was the first question people asked you. It gave you status in a way. It was a big deal. And not to take that away from prestigious universities and high caliber schools, because it's an incredible accomplishment. At the same time, I've also lived in places in the United States that it's like, yeah, if I go to college, like if I do that. And I think that was a huge perspective shift for me to be able to see like both are great and valuable and can be respected, but it's not like where you go to school is not who you are, right?
Exactly.
Regardless of where you go, do a community college, online school, or an Ivy League, right? And so I think that's been like something that I've had to grow up and mature in. But I do want to backtrack a little bit on just your baseball journey so far. When did you first fall in love with baseball?
So I was super young. Um, the day after I was born, I was actually at the baseball field. So um, I have an older brother who's 7 years older than me. So I was born day after I got out of the hospital. I was at the field, and I mean, it might have been the next day after I was born. I'm not sure. Um, but Originally, I was an emergency C-section because I had the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if that made it where I had to stay longer at the hospital or not. But I know the day after I got out of the hospital, I was at the baseball field, and all I can remember was I was probably 2 or 3 years old, and whenever my brother was playing, I was always asking my dad to, throw me the ball or whatever. And then it's kinda just been been the same since then.
Growing up with an older brother who played baseball, do you have a standout memory of maybe watching him play that had an impact on you, or even just playing catch with him in the backyard?
Yeah, I mean, I got to backtrack, seeing him win the state championship, uh, was big, like, the my high school up to that point had never made it past the 2nd round of playoffs, and there's 6 rounds in Texas, so, um, it's like they win the 1st round, it's like, "Alright, well, let's see," and then
That
they win
shouldn't
the
even
2nd round.
technically count as playoffs. It's just like
Exactly.
regular season.
So and then it just kept going and kept going, and then just to, like, be able to watch that was big, and then, um, every weekend, whenever I was, growing up after my brother went off to school, we were, um, driving to go watch him, whether it was whenever he was at his junior college or whether it was when he was at Texas Tech, like, every weekend, we were going somewhere, and then I always wanted to go to TCU. I was told like, "Hey, it's really expensive. You're gonna have to work really hard," and that was not what you know, I didn't have a problem with the hard work aspect of it, but it was more of I didn't want to put my parents into a situation that was gonna hurt them financially. So I kind of, started to venture out. But my freshman year, my brother was playing against TCU, and it was at TCU, and it was something about it. It was like, yeah, I was rooting for my brother, but it was like the spark for TCU like kind of came back. So um, at that point, I knew I really had to work on my grades to make sure that I was able to get money to go to school, so I could get scholarship baseball wise, but also get money to also help my parents out and try to get academic money as well. But I mean, my whole career, I looked up to my brother, and then um, COVID came around and my brother was back home and we went up and hit. Like my summer ball season, we had started early. We were playing scrimmages and stuff like that in May. And my first one didn't go well. My dad was at work and I was like, asked my brother, hey, can you go throw to me? And it was probably the most stressed I've ever been hitting. Because like normally my dad throws and it's like, it's yeah, we're getting better, but he's not trying to blow my doors off. And first throw for my brother, and
Nope.
my brother's like, "Hey, if you wanna do this, we're gonna do this." So, um, it's just a combination of all those, watching my brother, but also, my brother helping me fulfill my dreams.
Yeah, your brother's not taking it easy on you.
He
That's
was
for
not.
sure. And I think it's in a playful way too, but also he knows what it takes to play at the college level, right? And he probably saw something in you like, okay, Creed needs this,
Yeah.
like dad's throwing him softballs. He needs something a little more intense. But you also are a catcher. And so I'd love to know, like, why catcher?
Same reason everything else. I saw my brother doing it, and I immediately fell in love with it, and I think it's just something that, like, growing up, nobody else wanted to catch, and I was, wearing catcher's gear around at my brother's games, um, but it got to the age that kids start to throw a little bit harder, and everybody else is like, "Oh, I want to go play shortstop or I want to play outfield or whatever it was." And so there was a 2 year span that I was like truly the only catcher on my team, and like we had other guys who could catch, but we would have them at other positions. So I was catching every weekend, and it was like after the week was over, it was like, yeah, it's kind of tired, but it just felt like I had gotten to the point where I'd fallen like so in love with it that I didn't care how I felt afterwards. But it just brought me, joy to be back there.
I have to ask you because my whole life I've always, watched baseball games like, how's the catcher sitting like that? How is that on your body after a game?
It's honestly my first couple of years it was really rough. And granted I was overweight, so that didn't help at all. And like moving away from home, being away for my first year, like I didn't really know how to cook, and so I was eating, McDonald's every day, or DoorDash and, Subway, Jersey Mike's, whatever it was. And so I was like
We still
hurting.
like Subway and Jersey Mike's, by the
Yeah.
way. Yeah, like,
So
not
I
canceling them out.
no, but it's just more I started to like truly um realize that like if I wanted to do this and keep doing this, like I was gonna have to take care of my body. And then I fell in love with cooking. So it got to the point it was like I was always cooking food. I started to lose weight, and then after games, instead of being hurting and like my hips hurt, and you get home and it's the middle of January or the middle of July, and it's like you're just drained. Whereas whenever I started taking care of my body and putting good food into it and everything like that, you know, it's August and it's like, yeah, I'm a little sore, but the next morning I'm not waking up with, back pain and hip pain. So, um, it's gotten to the point where at one point I was 270 pounds and I was catching, and now it's like I did that and it was basically a workout. So now at, 230, it's just become like a lot easier. And I think a lot of it has to do with our strength and conditioning and training room staff for, giving us the time to go in there after games, whether it's cold tub or, go in there and stretch or whatever it is, like to get treatment has also made it a lot easier. But going through it my first year and a half was very painful at times.
Well, it's
So,
cool that now you're probably an amazing
mhm.
chef, right? You got that skill out of it as well, but, I think it's hard as an athlete, right? You think, like, you get drafted or you make your varsity team or you're one of the best players on your college team. There's always ways to elevate your game and even just for body care, right? Like, you don't wanna leave a game feeling you're already gonna be sore. You don't want anything on top of that, but I have to ask you because you go from high school baseball to pro baseball and now being a professional and you're not at college and taking the normal route as most just students, right? How did you navigate that transition in your life?
It was very difficult. Um, I felt like, I hung out with my brother a lot and around his buddies, so I was mature in the aspect of I knew how to act, but I didn't know what to do in the sense of like, you know, training wise. So it was very difficult for me. And I think I was always one of those, I was going to work hard, but I didn't always know what to work hard at. So, and I was also one, I didn't really ask a whole lot of questions at first because I was more just like nervous, and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to try to figure this out on my own. And I think the Holiday family really helped me with that. After like my first full season, they had drafted Jackson. Jackson got up to low A, and I got to talk with Matt and got real close with their family. And just to kind of, see Jackson, like he was just so quick to, fall out. And for me, it was completely opposite. But it's like, it just shows that, everybody comes from like different places in life. And I think the biggest part was I struggled with my hitting, and um, they invited me up to go to their house and to hit with Matt and stuff like that. So I was able to ask questions that, if I would have just, kind of seen them at the field, I probably wouldn't have asked. But getting to spend time up there helped me. And I think that's played a big role in my career and being able to, go out. If I can go talk to Matt Holliday about hitting, then, I can ask a hitting coach for some advice. So
That's some pretty good advice,
it is.
I would imagine. You said just the struggle, right, when you first got to pro baseball. What did you lean on during that time when maybe your confidence was shaken in a way?
Yeah, so it was really tough. And this part of my life has, really helped shape me into the person I am today. Um, I felt like once all the guys got called up, I'm 18 years old. I'm around a bunch of Latin teammates who I can't talk to, and I really started to get to the point where, there was days that my Bible wouldn't be opened, and one day turned into 3 days, and 3 days turned into a week, and at that point, I'm struggling, I'm going through it, and I start to be like, Lord, like, why am I going through this? Um, and it's like everything was going, downhill. I didn't have my parents there to help me out. Didn't, have somebody who I could go talk to. And then I end up having a flexor strain in my elbow. I'm out for 6 weeks. And during that time, I was able to find my way back into reading my Bible every day, praying and trying to live a life that honors the Lord. And that's kind of helped, get where I am today. It's like now I know how to navigate my time. I know I have time set aside every day to, read my Bible, to pray, and just, ask the Lord to use me every day in whatever way I need to, be used for His glory. Like I pray that He's able to, use me and speak through me.
And that is easier said than done,
It
right?
is.
And I can imagine there was, you say, yes, I'm, going to ask the Lord to use me, but like you probably had to, like you said, open your Bible daily and start really like using your faith as a muscle, right? Like you have
Yeah.
to rep it out. Was there during that specific season of your life, was there a specific verse or song or just like truth about God that you really were holding on to be able to get you to that place where you were going from, "Hey, I gotta open my Bible," to, "I'm so excited to open my Bible because I know I need this."
So I was always about Second Chronicles 15:7 growing up, and it says, "But you do not let your be strong and do not let your hands become weak, for your work shall be rewarded." And then going through my first season, like that's still a big verse for me, but now it's um, Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous, do not be weak, or do not be afraid nor dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And I actually got it tattooed on me. And so it kind of switched. Like I still, love Second Chronicles 15:7, and it used to be on all of my gloves and everything like that. But going through that, it switched over to Joshua 1:9, and it just kind of showed me like, we have a Lord who is above all, and that we shouldn't fear anything. The only thing we should fear is the Lord, because he holds our eternity in His hands. And it also told me like, I don't need to be afraid of anybody, or like anybody who looks at me a different way because I'm a Christian, or anybody who, doesn't like me because I'm a Christian. Because at the end of the day, I got the Lord on my side. And if I only have the Lord on my side, then that's all I need.
I love that verse, and Joshua 1:9 is a verse that was sent to me so many times throughout my athletic career, and specifically by my Mimi, and the part of the verse that I think hit me the most was the first line,
Yeah.
"Have I not commanded you?" And I'm, like, naturally, like, a goody two-shoes, like, I hate breaking the rules, like, I was the kid with the lunch tray at lunch, everybody else just using their plate, like, I hate breaking the rules, and I will do if what someone tells me to do, and I'm working on it in some certain circumstances, but the commanded you, I would read that and say, "Oh, shoot, like, God is commanding me to be strong, courageous, I have to do it." And, like, for me, in just my personality, that was the part of the verse that was like, I am being told to obey God. Like, it's a commandment, and so I think for me in my athletic journey, when I would be anxious or have fear in certain situations on or off the field, I'd have to remind myself of the beginning part of that
Yeah.
verse, like, "Have I not commanded you to be this way?"
Yeah. And my mom has played a huge factor into my faith. Um, Still today, it's been the same for the last 5 years. Like, whenever I'm at home, we can talk about it like face to face. But every morning, I wake up, and whether it's I'm or like she's already sent it, or she sends it when I get to the field, but she sends me a Bible verse every day. And so it got to the point that um, this past year, she actually got Bible verses from a bunch of my friends' parents and fans and my pastor and everybody like this, and put it into a book for me. And it was a journal. So every day I would get to the field, I would open it up, and I would write out how I interpreted those verses. And then once it got to the point I had went through all of them, then it turned into me going from the verses she sent me, and then every day I would try to interpret that, and I felt like that helped me so much just because it's not like I'm just going in and looking at the Bible verse and reading it and being like, "All right, well, I'm done." But I actually got to the point where I was able to focus on, 1 or like 3 to 5 verses or whatever it was, and I was able to go through and actually, write down what they meant to me and how I interpreted them. And I think that was the best part was I could go back and look at a Bible verse a second time, and it's like I can, see something different will stand out to me. So, um, but that was something that helped me a lot this year. And sadly, during 2022, she was still sending them to me, and instead of actually reading them and looking into them, I would just, hold it down and press the heart response. And it was like I would kinda look at it, but I was going through that time where I was struggling with it, and I felt like I had to do it all on my own. And as the years have gone on, it's like, I have this opportunity to do this. I might as well use my gifts to honor the Lord. And so that's something I try to do is, try to spread that to fans. So it's gotten to the point, last year in the fall league, I started to have fans ask me to write my favorite Bible verse on baseballs. And that was something that really stood out to me because it was like, if they're asking me that, then they understand that I'm a Christian and that I'm doing something right. And that, you know, whether it's they see it on my Instagram or, whether they see me living it out or whatever it is, it's like they understand that my heart belongs to the Lord. And it's kind of turned into now, we have a bunch of specialty jerseys throughout the year. So now the day after we sign it, um, and I write my favorite Bible verse or, write 2 Bible verses or whatever it is. And it's like, at the end of the day, if the person who gets my jersey doesn't want those on there, then, you know, it's
Give it to
whatever.
someone who does.
Exactly. But it's something that I feel like, they can either look at it and be like, "Oh, I wish he wouldn't have done that," or they can look at it and they can be like, "Oh, well, I wonder what that is," and then that, allows them to go open their go get the Bible app on their phone and look it up, or, if they have a Bible sitting off to the side that they haven't opened in a while, then they can open it up and, maybe that just it sparks something.
What a cool gift, number one, from your mom to you to not only share verses from her, but also people in your life that you
Mhm.
may or may not even know. And I think something when I've been shared verses in my life, like Joshua 1 9, it can be easy when you're in the middle of your day, especially on a game day, is probably when you're being
Mhm.
sent verses. You're like, okay, cool. Like, I'm trying to get through like 5 other things, right? I have noticed though, like in when I reflect on my life, the verses that have had the most impact on me and ones that I go back and I'll read the context were not discovered by myself. They were through other people. Even like Philippians 4:13, right? It was a verse that my whole life was like, "Oh yeah, I can do all things through Christ." Like, I'm strong. My grandfather sent that to me on a game day, and then I took the time to read it, not just like you said, heart the text, go through the context, and I realized, "Oh wait, the author is in prison when he's saying that?"
Yeah.
And it changed everything for me just knowing like really the truth of the verse and what it was saying. And also just I think the Lord allows people to give you things like that as real encouragement in your life.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is, you know, you can either read into it and be like, "All right, well, read my verse for the day," or you can look at it and, understand the circumstances of where and when the verse was written and how you can apply it to your life. And I felt like I was also able to apply it because I always had time set aside every morning that I would read my Bible. And then, there's some days that you might be in a little bit more of a rush. So you're not able to truly go through the whole like chapter and, kind of dive into it and write down everything that see. And maybe that's, partly my fault for not, managing my time better. But, I'd rather, just go into it, have that time set aside, but also the fact that my mom took time out of her day to find a verse for me and send it to me. Um, it in 2023, it's, really, or 2022, it hit me. I was like, my mom's doing this for me. Like, I need to start taking time to appreciate it. And now it's one of those, it's like I'm taking the time that I have to dive into the Lord's word and, try to better understand him and the people that he used, instead of just, you know, reading it and being like, all right, I'm done for the day.
Mm. I want to go back to what you said about like if fans see and ask like if I'm a Christian, like that's good. Like that's what I want. And I think there is a misconception in a way that Christians think that they're, perfect or like the best in the room or like follow all the rules or whatever it is and know the best. And I think the older that I've gotten, it's been more clear to me like, hey, if anything, being bold in my faith, putting verse in my Instagram bio, posting scripture on social media, signing an autograph with a verse attached to it. That is not me saying I'm the best and I'm holy. That is me saying I am broken and I need Jesus. And I
Exactly.
think that has been for me the biggest like I want to tell the world that is that my outwardness and my boldness about my faith has turned into like this is what I am dependent on, and not the other way around. So I'd love to know for you, have you always been bold in your faith? Because if someone went on your Instagram, they're like, man, this guy loves Jesus.
Yeah. So, I think really 2022 is the only time I truly struggled in it. And, I grew up in a Christian home. Every Sunday, I was at church. And or not every Sunday, like during, travel ball season growing up, I was at the baseball field. But as soon as, if we played a little bit later in the day or whatever it was, like I was sitting in church. And so it was never like one of those things that I had an aha moment. Um, and so I just remember, like, I always knew who Jesus was, but it wasn't until November 26th of 2017 I truly gave my life to him. And um, it's still like we have a guest preacher who comes in every Sunday after Thanksgiving to my church back home. And it's the service I look to most every year because it's the service that saved me. And it's called The Day I Stopped Running from the Lord. And um, might get a little emotional, but 2022, that was the one I looked forward to just because like I had been so far from the Lord. And that that Sunday after Thanksgiving was whenever everything I felt like started to kind of line back up. And it was like, yeah, it started spending more time, but that Sunday was the day that I was like, all right, like let's get truly back on track. And so I mean, that was 2022, 5 years later, and it's like it's still held the same purpose, and it's like I hear the same message every year. And I'm just so thankful for Dr. Tim Lee, which is who comes in and speaks. And um so it's like every year I look forward to that one, and I can just always look back and remember like, you know, that was the day that, I could have just sat in my normal seat with my parents at the pew and been like, yeah, I mean, I'll just, kind of stay over here and say I'm saved. But he said, he was like, if you've gotten saved and you've accepted the Lord today, come up to the front. And so I get up and I'm sitting on the inside because I would always sit on the opposite side of my parents as my brother. So my brother was always on the outside. I had to walk all the way around. And my brother was like pulling me. He's like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "I just accepted the Lord. Like I'm going up front." And so um, I still remember that day, and that day's stuck out to me. So now um, it's like for Thanksgiving this year, I'm going to be hunting with my parents, and all I told my parents was we're coming back on Saturday night after we hunt because I need to go listen to Tim Lee. So
That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that story because now every Thanksgiving I'm gonna be thinking about Creed,
so
about that. That is so cool. Oh my goodness. What like an awesome moment for you. Not like number one, the boldness that you had in that moment, like to go up in front of your church, right? As a Christ follower too. Like, what did that feel like in that moment?
to me, it felt like, um, I was finally making that next step, and, so for me, it was like, Jesus went and put his life on the line in front of people who hated him. Um, I can, go and show people who are in the church who, were saved or are looking, you know, at other people getting saved. And it's like if, you know, a kid younger than me who's sitting in church for the first time can see somebody who's just a couple years older than him go do that, then, that might give them the confidence to go up there. And so that day I didn't care about, anybody who may have judged me or looked at me and been like, wow, like, you know, can't believe that kid's actually walking up there or whatever it was. It was like I didn't care what other people thought. And that from that day on, it was like, who cares what other people think of me? Um, I'm imperfect, so is everybody else on this planet, but we have a perfect savior, and that's all that matters.
Creed, that is so cool because something that is said in the Bible so much is like, remember what God did,
Mhm.
remember this, remember that. And that's what the Lord asks us to do is to like recall how he's already been faithful to us. And I think what I'm hearing from your story is that it's so cool that you have this day and this sermon with a specific pastor and a certain message that wherever you are in your life, because it's not gonna be like, "Oh, yeah,"
Mhm.
it's gonna be like this for the rest of your life, but it's so cool that now for the rest of your life, you will always have a tangible, "Remember this, Creed. Remember how I've been faithful to you," for the rest of your life, and just like a checkpoint in your life that the Lord can ask you to recall, "Hey, like, I got you."
Yeah.
I think that is so cool. Uh, I do wanna ask you just about the message on your shirt because it's the Jesus One shirt,
Mhm.
and I love the Jesus One shirts. Wearing that shirt, what do you feel when you wear the Jesus One shirt?
Yeah, so I mean, to me it's my way of, just expressing that the Lord went and died and everybody was like, "Oh, you know, he's dead." But now it's like he defeated the grave. Death has no hold on us anymore after we've accepted the Lord. And so the Jesus one, it's just a reminder and like an expression for everybody else who sees me wearing it. And I was told this year, like, they were like, hey, whenever it comes to practice, like, we want you to wear Orioles stuff. And I didn't listen to that. And I just
These are
kind
times
of,
when you can break the rules.
that's how I felt. And I was like, you know what? I didn't feel like our manager would find me for it. But at the end of the day, I was like, if I get fined, who cares? Like, you know,
Jesus taxes.
exactly. And so I would wear um, my Orioles one. It had the Orioles font and everything like that. So I was like, it's fine to wear. Like it's almost, Baltimore Orioles gear.
Just
Um,
kinda move around like this.
exactly. It's like so for me it's just a daily reminder that that death was defeated and that's when Jesus won. And so I went out and I actually bought a pack of bracelets from um, their website and we had a Bible study every other Friday, and I went in and kind of gave those out, and then I bought a bag of mini Jesuses on TikTok Shop,
Okay, I
and
gotta say,
so I
I've
was
been
giving
wanting to
those
get
out.
those.
Yeah,
But wait, like the little ones or
mhm.
like the stuffed animal one. Have you
The
seen that
little one
one?
I have not.
It's whatever algorithm I
So
have, I'm like, I haven't had a stuffed animal since I was like 8. I was like, "I kinda like that. Jesus
I
one."
I bought 200 of them actually.
Oh,
So
shoot. So what are you
I
gonna do with them?
my mom, I gave one of them to my mom, and she gives them out to kids at school, whatever. And then I've given a couple out in the clubhouse, and they kind of sit in my truck because I feel like it was actually really cool. I had kind of going off topic, but I had some fans meet me in the parking lot after the game, and I kind of got to share, my testimony with them. And so I gave them mini Jesuses, and it was like the dad was like so appreciative of that, just to see like he's like, yeah, I've been wanting my kids to really look into the Lord. And like he was a Christian and he's like, I think that if they see people, professional athletes glorifying the Lord, then they're going to be like, all right, well, he obviously gives the opportunity a better life. So it was kind of cool. And his kids, were throwing the ball in the parking lot. So I got to talk to him. And um, it's like, obviously, I wanted to get home. But before you know it, I'm talking to this guy. We have a deep conversation and look at my watch, and it was 11:45, and I left the clubhouse at 11:15. And I was like, you know what? Like, yeah, I could have been like, hey, I got to go. But I was able to share my testimony, and I was able to, kind of give those kids a day that they could remember. And then as they would come to more games, it was like, they'd come down, I'd give them high fives, say what's up, talk to them for a little bit. So um, I just feel like it's a small way of, whether it's giving out bracelets or wearing a shirt or giving out those mini Jesuses, it's like a way to, just kind of express that.
I love that story. I think maybe I'm gonna have to go on TikTok shop. Is that what it was?
I did. So yeah.
All right, TikTok shop for mini Jesus. I love it. That is such a cool story. Well, Creed, I'll wrap up with one final question. Throughout your pro baseball career, and you have so much good ahead of you, what is a standout favorite memory, favorite play? And you probably don't want to talk about it because you're probably super humble, but walk me through your favorite play that you have had so far in your pro career.
So um, I can't remember I think it was June of 2024. My parents had come into town, and like at this point I was playing really good, and I was starting to get kind of frustrated because I was like, I felt like I should have been promoted. But um, I'm talking to my parents about it, and I'm kind of sharing my frustrations. And my mom was like, she's like, just be present where your feet are. And I was, kind of just going through one of those. It was like I always was trying to do more to like, get promoted. And my mom told me that night. I had really good game, um, and get to I don't remember if it was the bottom of the ninth or bottom of the 10th. But they bring in a guy, and I knew he couldn't throw a slider for a strike, and so I'm like, all right, like whatever. Um, and so I'm looking for something up in the zone, throws a fastball down, and I mean, I thought it was down. It was actually, almost the middle of the strike zone. And everybody in the dugout afterwards was like, dude, like, what did you take there? And I was like, I don't know. But I got a pitch, and I'm pretty sure it was at my chin. And I hit a walk-off two-run home run. And it wasn't my first career one, but it meant so much more because my parents were there, and I looked up and I saw my dad throw his hands up in the air, and it was like the best feeling because like yeah, it wasn't the first one, but you see your parents going crazy and all the time like you don't like a lot of people would be like, "Oh, you don't really think about that like in that moment." But it was like running the bases, it was all about them because I mean, they spent all the time, all the effort making it work out for me so I could be in the situation I'm in.
Threatening you with
And
school.
exactly. And so at that moment, it wasn't about me hitting a walk-off home run. It was about getting to see my parents celebrate it.
Wow.
So,
I need to see that on film at some point. That
yeah.
is so cool. I love that you saw your dad throw his hands
Mhm.
up. Like, where was he sitting?
So my dad does not like to sit around people
Okay.
during my games.
As most dads don't.
So um, they were standing up at the top of the concourse, and I hit it. I knew it was gone. I'm not big on like pimping home runs, but I did walk like halfway down the first base line, and
Come on, you got to for
so
that one.
I was like, whatever. Um, but then I knew where he was because as bad as it sounds, I've always like every time my dad's in town, whether it's both my parents or just my dad, I always try to find where my dad is, and I've gotten really good at like figuring out where he's at because like you know swinging a bad pitch, foul ball off. It's like I can look up at my dad, and it's like, all right, I know what he would be telling me right now, so we'll go ahead and fix that. And so I just knew where he was in the moment, and so it was like pretty easy to spot him. And then my mom was sitting in the front row, down the first baseline. So my mom was going crazy. My mom's big on pictures. She's trying to take pictures, but is jumping up and down.
Like, we have a
I'm like,
professional team.
I'm like, I'm like, Mom, we have people to do
Yeah.
this. But yeah, I mean, I kind of always try to find where they are, just because like it's a good reminder, like that whenever they're there, it's like you want to try to do more and more so that you can put a show on for them. Uh, but I've kind of gotten to the point where I try to use it as a reminder of what would my dad tell me right now. Um, Whenever something doesn't go my way, and then like just knowing where he was at, I was able to see their reactions, and it meant the world to me. So
So cool. Well, I love that story. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for coming on the What's Up podcast. This was a joy to talk to you and hear your story. And I'm so excited to follow your career in life beyond baseball as well. But Creed, we're cheering you on.
thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.